I raised 5 children alone. 5. I poured every single drop of my being into them, working 2, sometimes 3 jobs, to give them everything. And when they sold my home, the only place I ever truly owned, the one I worked my fingers to the bone for, they took every cent and left me here, in this nursing home, as if I were a forgotten piece of furniture. This is my story. My name is Eleanor. I'm 89 years old. And I need you to listen. They called it For My Own Good, a place where I'd be safe and looked after. Safe? Looked after? Tell me, my son, my daughter, does safety feel like this deafening silence that screams your absence? Does being looked after mean eating tasteless meals alone, watching the door every time it opens, hoping to see a familiar face that never comes? My hands tremble, not just from old age, but from the constant longing, the ache in my bones for a simple touch, a kind word from one of my own. I remember John, my oldest. He used to say I had the strongest hands, always working, always comforting. Now they just sit here, empty. The last thing they said was, "We'll visit soon, Mama. We promise." That was 6 months ago. 6 months. Do you know how long 6 months is when every single day stretches into an eternity? This room, barely big enough for my bed, and a small dresser, feels like the whole world has shrunk to this suffocating box. I look at the faded photograph I keep tucked under my pillow. All 5 of them, young and smiling, clinging to my skirts. My little ones. My babies. They look so happy, so innocent. How could those sweet faces grow into people who could forget me so completely? The silence here is so loud it hurts my ears. It's a constant reminder that no one is coming. No one cares enough to even call. I used to be their whole world, their foundation. Now, I'm just a number, an inconvenient memory. And the worst part? I still keep that picture praying they might suddenly remember the woman who gave them everything. Praying they'll still keep their promise. But what happened next broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. No, wait. I haven't told you the most painful part yet. That was the day the world went quiet. But before the quiet, oh, there was such a symphony. My John. He was such a curious boy, always tinkering, always asking, "Why, Mama?" I remember one spring morning, the sun pouring through the kitchen window, smelling of freshly baked bread and the lilacs blooming outside. He must have been 6, maybe 7. He'd taken apart my old alarm clock, springs and gears scattered all over the kitchen table. I'd just come in from my second job, cleaning offices downtown, bone-tired. But when I saw his earnest little face, covered in grease, trying to put it back together, my heart just swelled. He looked up at me, his eyes wide. "I'm trying to see how it works, Mama." And instead of scolding him, I sat down, pulled him onto my lap, and we looked at all the little pieces together. I worked my fingers raw to buy him that first chemistry set, that first telescope. He was going to be an engineer, he told me. He was going to build bridges, big, strong bridges, and he'd make sure I lived in the biggest house. He did build bridges, you know, important ones. But he didn't build one back to me. Sarah, my little Sarah. She had hair like spun gold, and a giggle that could light up the darkest room. She loved to dance. Oh, how she loved to dance. I remember staying up late, long after everyone else was asleep, stitching sequins onto her first ballet costume. My fingers would ache, my eyes would blur. But I'd picture her twirling on stage, a tiny glittering star, and I'd just keep sewing. The fabric felt so soft, so delicate, like her spirit. She was so proud that day, her face flushed with effort and pure joy as she curtsied to the applause. My heart could have burst. I kept that costume for years, wrapped in tissue paper, the sequins still catching the light. It used to hang in my closet, a reminder of pure, unadulterated happiness. I wonder if she ever thinks of that day, or if the memory has faded, like the colors of that old costume. The smell of the sizing spray and her childhood perfume. It's still so vivid in my mind, far more real than the antiseptic smell of this room. And Michael, my wild one. He was all scraped knees and boundless energy, always getting into some mischief, but with a heart as big as the sky. He once found a stray puppy, shivering in the rain, and brought it home, begging me to let him keep it. We barely had enough for ourselves, but I saw the desperate plea in his eyes, the way he held that shivering creature. How could I say no? We kept that little mutt, named him Lucky. Michael would share his meager plate of food with him, sneaking scraps under the table. That boy taught me so much about unconditional love. He was always fiercely protective of his siblings, always the first to stand up for them. Now, I often wonder, who stands up for me? Who would fight for me now? Then came Emily, my quiet scholar. She loved books more than anything. I'd save every spare penny to buy her new stories, often second-hand, but to her they were treasures. We'd sit together on the worn sofa, me mending clothes, her nose buried in a book, and she'd read passages aloud to me, her voice soft but clear. She loved history, especially the stories of strong women. I remember feeling such pride, watching her graduate at the top of her class, her cap and gown so crisp, her smile so bright. She went on to become a teacher, shaping young minds, just as she'd always dreamed. I hoped she remembered all the stories I read to her, all the encouragement I gave, all the times I stayed awake to help her with her homework, even when my eyes were heavy with sleep, and David, my baby, the youngest. He always knew how to make me laugh, even on the hardest days. He loved to draw, covering every available surface with his colorful creations. His first drawing of me, with my big smile and even bigger apron, is still tucked away in an old photo album. He used to crawl into my bed after a nightmare, his small hand finding mine in the dark, and I'd hold him close until the fear faded. Those were the moments that nourished my soul, that made all the exhaustion, all the worry, worth it. The warmth of his tiny body against mine. Now, the bed feels so cold, so vast. I lived for those moments, for those children. Their laughter was my music, their dreams my purpose. I didn't just raise them, I breathed them. Every sacrifice, every aching muscle, every sleepless night was a testament to a love so fierce it felt like it could move mountains. I remember putting away a small amount each week, sometimes just $1 or $2, for their future, for their college funds. I wanted them to have more than I ever did, a life without struggle. I succeeded. They all built successful lives, and in doing so, they built a wall around me. If you think this is sad, wait until you hear what I found out about how they split my inheritance. But what I'm about to tell you will explain why they never came back. Wait. I haven't told you the most painful part yet. If you knew what I discovered at the end of this story, you might still have time to avoid making the same mistake my children did. I still have that album, you know. The pages are brittle, the colors faded. But the memories, oh, they're as bright as yesterday. I sit here now, tracing their young faces, remembering the sound of their voices echoing through our little house. A house filled with noise, with love, with life. Not this oppressive quiet, this heavy, empty air. This silence is so loud it hurts my ears. It's a constant reminder of what I had and what I've lost. The smell of cake I no longer bake. Who would I bake it for? My hands tremble, but it's not from Parkinson's. It's from longing. I wonder if they ever think of me when they see a lilac bush or hear a child's laughter. Do they? Or am I just a faint whisper, fading with each passing day, like the ink on these old photographs? It didn't happen all at once, you see. It was a slow fade, like a treasured photograph, left in the sun, the colors leaching out day by day, until only a ghost of what once was remains. The first time I felt that chill, that creeping cold of being forgotten, was on my 80th birthday. 80. A big number, isn't it? I'd spent the whole week before meticulously cleaning my little house, baking my famous lemon drizzle cake. Enough for all 5 of them, and their children too. I bought extra balloons, just like I used to for their birthdays, remembering the way their eyes would light up. My John loved the blue ones, Sarah the pink. Michael always tried to pop them. I waited, and I waited. The phone, an old rotary model my David bought me decades ago, sat silently on the hall table, gathering dust that day. Not a single call, not a card, not even a text message, though I never really understood those tiny screens anyway. The cake sat on the counter, slowly hardening. The balloons began to deflate, swaying sadly in the drafts. I remember sitting in my worn armchair, the one Michael always used to curl up in, staring at the front door. Every car that passed, every distant chime, made my heart leap. Maybe they're stuck in traffic, I whispered to myself, trying to soothe the raw ache that was already starting to form. They're just busy. That's what I told myself, clutching the little embroidered handkerchief Sarah made for me in 3rd grade. Busy. They were always busy. John had his big engineering projects, Sarah her dance studio, Michael his endless business trips, Emily her students, and David. My baby, he had his own family now. Their lives, once so interwoven with mine, were slowly unspooling, each thread pulling further and further away, until they became invisible. But what happened next broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. No, wait. I haven't told you the most painful part yet. The excuses started becoming routine. Mama, I'm so sorry. Work just blew up. The kids have a recital, you know how it is. The drive is just so long. We'll try next month. Next month never came. Or if it did, it brought another excuse. I'd call, my voice carefully cheerful, pretending everything was fine so I wouldn't be a bother. Oh, just checking in, dears. I'm doing wonderfully. Just wanted to hear your voice. I'd listen to their rushed replies, the background noise of their vibrant lives, and try to catch a fragment of warmth. Sometimes I'd hear a grandchild's voice, a sweet little sound that made me ache with longing. Tell Grandma I love her. A small voice might shout before being hushed, a fleeting comfort. I'd hang up, the receiver heavy in my hand, and the silence in my house would press in on me, heavier than before. My hands tremble, but it's not from Parkinson's. It's from longing. Then came the fall. A silly thing, really. Tripped over the rug in the hallway. Nothing broken, just a bruised hip and a bruised ego. But it was enough. Enough for them to gather, all 5 of them, in my small living room, the one where we used to gather for Christmas, where John would read "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" in his booming voice, and Sarah would help me decorate the tree. They sat on my worn sofa and chairs, their faces grim, serious. John spoke first. "Mom, We've been talking. We're worried about you here alone." Michael nodded, his arms crossed. Emily looked at her hands. David avoided my gaze. "It's for your own good, Mom," Sarah said, her voice soft but firm. "A place where you'll be safe, looked after." Here's the part that makes me cry every single night. My heart hammered in my chest. I knew what they meant. I'd seen the pamphlets, shiny and colorful, left casually on my kitchen table after their previous visits. Nursing homes, places for people who were done, finished. "But I'm fine here," I stammered, my voice sounding frail even to my own ears. "This is my home. Your home. We raised you all here." I looked from one face to the next, searching for a flicker of recognition, a hint of the children I'd loved, nurtured, bled for. But all I saw was resolve, unyielding, practical resolve. "It's settled, Mama," John said, his voice clipped. "We found a lovely place not too far." Not too far for who? Not too far for them to still avoid coming? I tried to argue, to plead, but their words flowed over me, a relentless tide of reasoning about safety rails and round-the-clock care, about how they couldn't possibly keep an eye on me while balancing their own lives. I was a burden. I worked my whole life to give them everything. Now, I'm a burden. I realized then that their minds were already made up. My opinion didn't matter. My home, my sanctuary, was no longer mine. The move was a blur of boxes and cold efficiency. They went through my things, deciding what was essential. My precious photo albums, a few pieces of my old china, some clothes. But the rest, the old rocking chair where I'd nursed each of them, the heavy oak dining table where we'd shared 1,000 meals, the faded quilt my mother had made, that old alarm clock John had once dissected. They were all deemed unnecessary. "Too much clutter, Mama," Sarah said gently but firmly, as she packed away my life into strangers' hands. I watched them load boxes into a truck, each one holding a piece of my past, a memory, being driven away to a charity shop or a dumpster. The only thing I truly owned, the home I had sacrificed everything to keep, was emptied, its soul ripped out. And I too was being taken. It felt like they were cleaning me out of their lives, making space for something new. What I'm about to tell you will explain why they never came back. The nursing home isn't bad. It's the loneliness that kills. My new room, as they called it, was sterile, impersonal. The walls a bland beige, the bed firm. A small window looked out onto a concrete courtyard. It wasn't a home. It was a holding place. They stayed for a few hours that first day, bustling around, unpacking the few items they'd allowed me to keep. They brought flowers, bright and artificial, that would never wilt. They promised to visit often. "We'll be back next weekend, Mama," Michael said, giving my hand a perfunctory squeeze. "We promise." I looked into his eyes, searching for that fiercely protective boy who once brought home a shivering puppy. I found only a tired man, eager to leave. That was a year ago. A year. That next weekend never arrived. The calls became less frequent, then stopped altogether. My birthday last month, 89 years old, passed without a whisper. Just like that 80th birthday. No cake, no balloons. Just the rhythmic hum of the air conditioning and the distant murmur of other residents, their own stories of abandonment echoing in the sterile halls. I clean my small table every morning, just in case one of them remembers that they promised. I sit here, clutching the faded photograph, the one with all 5 of them, young and smiling, clinging to my skirts, my little ones, my babies. They look so happy, so innocent. How could those sweet faces grow into people who could forget me so completely? The silence here is so loud it hurts my ears. It's a constant reminder that no one is coming. No one cares enough to even call. I still pay his health insurance, even though he abandoned me. The unspoken words hang in the air like dust motes in a shaft of sunlight. I raised 5 children. Today I have no one. If you think this is sad, wait until you hear what I found out about how they split my inheritance. Wait, I haven't told you the most painful part yet. If you knew what I discovered at the end of this story, you might still have time to avoid making the same mistake my children did. I watch the other residents here, their eyes mirroring my own sorrow, the unspoken question of why, hanging heavy between us. We are a forgotten generation, ghosts in waiting. I'm afraid of dying alone, of no one noticing, of my hands, these hands that worked and comforted and nurtured, being found cold and still by a stranger. My heart aches for a simple touch, a kind word from one of my own. My grandchildren, my little grandson. He doesn't even know my name now, I'm sure. I remember the smell of cake I no longer bake. Who would I bake it for? This solitude is a suffocating blanket, and I keep asking myself lying awake in the dark, staring at the beige ceiling. Where did I go wrong as a parent? Why don't my children want me round? Was I a bad mother? I search through my memories, replaying every moment, every sacrifice, every decision, trying to find the flaw, the mistake that led me here. But all I find is love, just love, an endless, bottomless well of it, poured out freely, completely. And now, it's just me. And the silence. You know what's worse than death? Being alive and forgotten. Every morning the same routine. The sterile white ceiling. The faint smell of disinfectant. I wake up before the sun, not because I have somewhere to be, but because sleep offers no escape from the emptiness. My bones ache. My body remembers the rhythm of hard work, of scrambling out of bed before dawn to start my first job, then my second, my John. My John. He always used to complain I was up too early, clattering pots and pans in the kitchen. Now there's no clatter, just the heavy, dragging silence. I lie there sometimes for an hour, just listening to the soft hum of the nursing home, a monotonous song of institutionalized life. There's no purpose to my day anymore. No little hands to hold, no dinner to cook, no clothes to mend. Just waiting. Waiting for the clock to reach breakfast time, for the nurse to bring my pills, for the next tasteless meal. My meals are the worst. A plastic tray, usually something bland and easily digestible. I eat alone, always. Oh, there are other residents, of course. We sit at separate tables, like islands in a sea of shared solitude. Sometimes I pretend to be Sarah, my little Sarah, at a grand dinner party, gracefully lifting my fork, making polite conversation with invisible guests. Or I imagine Michael, my wild one, sneaking me some of his dessert under the table. It's a game I play to keep the quiet from consuming me whole. But then I look down at my trembling hands, at the gray food on the plate, and the illusion shatters. My plate is always empty of companionship, just like my days. I still keep his first baby shoe, you know, tucked away in my small dresser drawer. Sometimes I take it out, hold it and whisper to my baby David, my baby boy, telling him about my day, about the dreams I had, about how much I miss him. He doesn't even know my name. It feels less lonely when I talk to them, even if they're just faded images in my mind. The phone. Oh, the phone. It's on my bedside table, an old-fashioned rotary one they let me keep from home. It never rings. Not for me. Sometimes I pick it up just to feel the weight of it, to remember the sound of John's hearty laugh on the other end, or Sarah's melodic voice, or Emily's thoughtful questions. Sometimes I dial a number from memory, one of their old numbers, just to hear the dead tone, confirming what I already know. They changed the locks, you see, not just on my house, but on their hearts. They've moved on so completely that I barely exist in their world anymore. I still save food from my plate sometimes, a little piece of fruit or a cookie just in case. Just in case someone, anyone, might visit. It's a foolish habit, I know. The food just goes stale. But what happened next broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. No, wait. I haven't told you the most painful part yet. Holidays are particularly cruel here. Christmas felt like a funeral. The staff tried to make it cheerful, hanging paper snowflakes and playing carols, but it just made the emptiness echo louder. I remember waking up on Mother's Day last year. I could hear the buzz of excitement in the hallway, the laughter, the sound of visitors. I pretended to be asleep, pulling the thin blanket over my head so I wouldn't see the others receiving flowers, cards, hugs. So I wouldn't have to explain why my children never came. The shame, the searing, overwhelming shame. Was I a bad mother? Why don't my children want me around? I replayed every memory, every sacrifice, every moment of discipline or comfort, trying to find the flaw. But all I found was love, just love, an endless, bottomless well of it, poured out freely, completely. I worked my whole life to give them everything. Now I'm a burden. I closed my eyes, picturing 5 little faces pressed against my cheek, all saying, "Happy Mother's Day, Mama." A silent tear escaped and trickled into my pillow, a small offering to a forgotten past. Then came the day, a few weeks after Mother's Day. It wasn't a phone call or an overheard conversation. It was a formal letter, addressed to me, Eleanor Vance, at this nursing home. It was from the county tax assessor's office. The nurses usually open our mail, but this one, they brought it directly to me. Unopened because it looked official. My hands trembled. Not from Parkinson's. It's from longing. And now, fear. I fumbled with the envelope, my old eyes straining to read the elegant script. It was a notice about a property sale. My property. But not the sale I knew. Here's the part that makes me cry every single night. This letter wasn't about the money they took when they sold my house to put me here. That initial sum that vanished into their managing my affairs. This was about my trust. My trust. The one I'd set up years ago, after my husband passed. The one meant to ensure I'd always have a roof over my head and a little something for my grandchildren's education. A small account, separate from the house sale, meant for me, for any emergencies, for my dignity. I'd told John about it, in confidence, asking him to be the trustee, to oversee it for me, to make sure it was there. He'd looked me in the eye, my John, my oldest, and promised. He promised to honor my wishes, to protect it. The letter stated that the trust had been dissolved, the assets liquidated, and the funds dispersed. It detailed amounts, dates, and beneficiaries. Not me, not my grandchildren, my 5 children, each name listed, with an identical sum next to it. They had divided it, every single penny, my rainy day fund, my legacy, my last whisper of financial independence. They hadn't just taken the house, they had systematically emptied every pocket, every hidden drawer of my life, leaving me with nothing but this sterile room and these empty hands. The date of dissolution? 6 months ago, right around the time they brought me here and promised to visit soon. They had been planning this all along. What I'm about to tell you will explain why they never came back. They changed the locks. They didn't just abandon me. They erased me. The trust was my emergency fund, the sum I'd carefully squirreled away over decades after my husband died. The money I'd earmarked for something special for my grandchildren, if I ever had any. It was for their college, for a down payment on their first home. My little grandson. He doesn't even know my name. Now there was nothing, not a single cent left in my name. The house, my home, the only place I ever truly owned, the one I worked my fingers to the bone for, gone. And the money for my future, for my dignity, also gone. They had taken every single cent and left me here, in this nursing home, as if I were a forgotten piece of furniture. It was all a pretense, the fall, the concern, the for your own good. It was a carefully orchestrated maneuver to strip me of everything. I looked at the names on the paper. John, Sarah, Michael, Emily, David, my children, my babies, the names I'd whispered into the night as I comforted them, the names I'd shouted in triumph as they achieved their dreams. The same names now staring back at me, cold and indifferent, on a document that detailed my final utter destitution. They had not just forgotten me, they had actively stolen from me. The realization hit me like a physical blow, a sudden, sharp pain in my chest that stole my breath. It wasn't just neglect. It was betrayal. A deliberate act. The nursing home isn't bad. It's the loneliness that kills. But this betrayal, it rips out the soul. I still pay his health insurance, even though he abandoned me. That was the most agonizing twist. Here I was, stripped of everything. Yet I was still paying for my son Michael's health insurance, a habit from when his business struggled years ago. I'd continued it, out of habit, out of love. A love they clearly did not reciprocate. My hands trembled, not just from old age, but from the cold shock of it. I raised 5 children. Today I have no one. My entire life, every sacrifice, every drop of sweat, every sleepless night, reduced to a tax document detailing my children's inheritance, taken while I was still alive, discarded. They didn't just leave me, they buried me. They put me in this box, and then they sealed it shut, taking the very earth I had left to hold on to. The silence in my room, usually so loud it hurts my ears, became deafening. It screamed their names. It screamed my heartbreak. It screamed, "Mama, we forgot you." If you knew what I discovered at the end of this story, you might still have time to avoid making the same mistake my children did. I sat there, the crumpled letter in my lap, unable to move, unable to cry. The tears were already dried up, replaced by a cold, hard ache. It was worse than any physical pain, worse than any fall, worse than any illness. It was the pain of a mother whose heart had been torn out by the very children she nurtured. This wasn't just abandonment. It was a calculated cruelty. I had worked my whole life to give them everything. Now I'm a burden, and they took the very last of my security. I still look at their photograph, the one under my pillow. But now the smiles seem to mock me, the innocence a cruel lie. Where did I go wrong as a parent? I still ask. But now I know it wasn't me. It was them. And the terrifying thought that sometimes creeps into my mind is, will my grandchildren do the same to their own parents? Will this cycle of forgetting, of taking continue? I'm afraid of dying alone, of no one noticing. But now, I think I'm more afraid of them, not noticing until it's too late. The crumpled letter lay heavy in my lap, not just with paper, but with the crushing weight of their names. John, Sarah, Michael, Emily, David, my children, my babies, the names that once filled my world with joy, now scrawled on a document that stripped me of my last shred of dignity. I'd always thought the nursing home was the worst part, the suffocating loneliness that kills. But this betrayal, it felt like my very soul was being ripped out. I raised 5 children. Today I have no one, and as the initial shock faded, a single insidious question began to worm its way into my weary mind, echoing louder than the silence in this sterile room. Where did I go wrong? As a parent? I replay my life like an old scratched record, searching for the crack, the moment I failed them. Was I too busy? I worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs, cleaning offices, sewing clothes for neighbors late into the night, my hands always raw. I wanted to give them everything, more than I ever had. I wanted them to have shoes that fit, warm coats in winter, books for Emily, a chemistry set for John, dance lessons for Sarah. Did my absence, dictated by the relentless clock of survival, leave an emptiness in their hearts that I never filled? Did they see my tired eyes, my aching back, and think I valued work more than them? Oh, my John, my John. I remember once, you were maybe 10. I had to work on your school play night. You were so excited about your part. I found you crying later, in your bed, thinking I hadn't cared enough to be there. I told you I loved you more than anything, that I was working for you. Was it a lie? Or did they never truly believe me? Here's the part that makes me cry every single night. Or was I too strict? I had to be, you see. A single mother, 5 children, not much money. There was no room for error. I taught them discipline, frugality, respect. I taught them the value of an honest day's work, the importance of family. I remember once Michael, my wild one, he took $1 from my purse. Just $1. I found it later, knew it was him. I didn't scold, I explained. I told him every dollar was earned with sweat, that we depended on it, that trust was everything. He looked so ashamed. Did that lesson, meant to teach integrity, instead fester into resentment? Did they see a stern hand where I only saw protection? Did I teach them about money too well, so well that it became their god, overshadowing everything else? My heart aches for a simple touch, a kind word from one of my own. But I always taught them that actions speak louder than words. I didn't want to hate them. How could I? They are my children, my blood. The very reason I breathed for so many decades. The love, you see, it's still there. It's a deep, unyielding root, even though the tree above has withered and died. I forgive them. Oh, I forgive them for their neglect, for their busyness, for their forgotten promises. I forgive them for not visiting, for the deafening silence that screams their absence. But the pain of being forgotten doesn't go away. The pain of being betrayed, of having my last small comfort stolen. That's a wound that festers, a poison that slowly eats away at the little hope I had left. It's a forgiveness that hurts more than hatred, because it means accepting that I gave everything, and they took it, and it still wasn't enough to keep their love. It's the realization that I might never understand why. And that understanding, that closure, is the one thing they cannot steal, but also the one thing they refuse to give. What I'm about to tell you will explain why they never came back. Sometimes, late at night, when the sterile room is at its darkest, and the nurse's footsteps are faint in the distance, I take out a small worn notebook and a pen. It's an old habit, something I used to do to plan budgets, to write shopping lists. Now it's where I write letters that will never be sent. I write to John, my John, reminding him of that spring morning, his little hands covered in grease, trying to fix the alarm clock. You were going to build bridges, my boy. I write, my hands trembling. But you didn't build one back to me. To Sarah, my little Sarah with hair like spun gold, I write about her first ballet costume, the sequins I stitched by candlelight. Do you remember how proud you were? I was prouder still. To Michael, my wild one, I recall Lucky, the shivering puppy he brought home. You taught me about unconditional love then, I whisper to the page, and I wish I could remind you now. To Emily, my quiet scholar, I write about the stories we read, the books I saved pennies for. Remember the strong women, my dear. I thought I was one too, but even the strongest break. And to David, my baby, my youngest, I trace the outline of his first drawing of me, with my big smile and apron. You made me laugh, even on the hardest days. I scribble, a tear blurring the ink. Now, only silence makes me weep. The words pour out, a torrent of love and pain, memories intertwined with the bitter reality of my present. I fill pages, sometimes until my old fingers ache and my eyes blur. I describe the silence here, the tasteless meals, the empty calls, the forgotten birthdays. I tell them about the letter from the tax assessor, about the trust they dissolved. I pour out my confusion, my sorrow, my enduring love. I ask them, why? Why did they take everything? Why did they abandon me here? Why don't my children want me around? But then when the sun begins to creep through my window, painting weak streaks on the beige wall, I close the notebook. I tuck it away under my pillow, next to their faded photograph. I never send them, because I know, deep down, they wouldn't read them. Or if they did, the words wouldn't penetrate the walls they've built around their hearts. They change the locks on my house, and they change them on their feelings too. But what happened next broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. No, wait. I haven't told you the most painful part yet. The truth, a bitter pill to swallow, is that maybe a mother's love isn't always reciprocated. Maybe the well of love I poured out, endless and unconditional, simply ran dry for them. Or perhaps it was never truly about me. It was about their lives, their ambitions, their convenience. I worked my whole life to give them everything. Now I'm a burden, and a profitable one at that, it seems. My heart feels like a hollowed-out tree, still standing, but completely empty inside. I still pay his health insurance, even though he abandoned me. That small, pointless act of continued care is my last connection, a thread I can't bear to cut, even though it wounds me further. I raised 5 children. Today I have no one. It's a lonely acceptance, a quiet surrender. The hope of their return, which once flickered like a stubborn candle flame, has finally, irrevocably, gone out. All that's left is the faint scent of lilac and bread in my memory, and the overwhelming, inescapable silence that fills my small, forgotten room. If you are watching this and have elderly parents, please listen to an old woman who learned a hard lesson. One day, you will be in my place. You will stare at these same bland walls, or perhaps at your own ceiling waiting for a phone call that never rings, for a knock on the door that never comes. You'll remember the noise, the laughter, the chaos of your own home, and the silence here will scream their names. My John, my Sarah, Michael, Emily, David. Their names echo in this empty room louder than any bell. And you will ask yourself, just like I do every single night, where did I go wrong? It's not about grand gestures, you see. Not about money, though they took that too. It's about a 5-minute phone call, just to say, I love you, Mama. It's about a shared cup of tea, a hand held, a memory shared. It's about listening to the old stories, even the ones you've heard 100 times, because those stories are us. They are your history. It's about a Sunday drive, a small bouquet of wildflowers from the garden. It's about letting them know they still matter, that they are not just a burden, not just a past fading into nothingness. I would give everything I have left, which is nothing really, for just one more Mother's Day hug. A real one. Not the phantom hug I give myself in the dark, clutching his first baby shoe. At the end of life, when your body is tired and your mind might wander, what truly fills your soul isn't the size of your bank account or the grand houses you built. It's the warmth of love. It's the sound of a familiar voice. It's knowing you aren't forgotten. It's the comfort of a memory shared, a hand squeezing yours. My greatest treasure wasn't my house or my savings. It was the laughter of my children. And now I have neither. My hands tremble, not just from Parkinson's, but from the emptiness of having nothing to hold. Here's the part that makes me cry every single night. Not for what I lost, but for what you might lose. Because this silence, this ache, this waiting, it can be your future. Don't leave it for later. Oh, please, my dears, don't say later. Later might be too late. The phone that never rings might be ringing your own guilt tomorrow. The door you never knocked on might be closed forever. Go now. Hug your parents. Tell them you love them. Today, not tomorrow. Today. I still hope to see my John, my Sarah, my Michael, my Emily, my David. One last time. Just to tell them I love them. One more time. To tell them I forgive them. Is that too much to ask before I close my eyes forever? Before I finally fade into the silence they created for me? This was the story of Eleanor, one among millions of abandoned elders. Her voice, shaking with a sorrow that words can barely contain, carries the silent plea of countless mothers and fathers who loved, nurtured, and gave everything, only to be forgotten. If this story touched your heart, if Eleanor's quiet tears and the echoes of her children's names resonated within you, then please, don't put off that call, that visit, until tomorrow. Don't let busyness become an excuse for a regret that will haunt you for a lifetime. Time doesn't go back, my dears, and regret is the only feeling that has no cure. It's a wound that festers, leaving an emptiness no success can fill. Look at your own parents, your grandparents. Are they waiting? Are they listening for the phone to ring? Do they talk to old photographs, just like Eleanor? Think of their hands, hands that once guided yours, now trembling with loneliness. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, someone who might be forgetting the silent sacrifices made for them. And if you have elderly parents, even if you just spoke to them, hug them for me. Hug them while you still can, with all the warmth and love Eleanor still carries for her John, Sarah, Michael, Emily, and David. Hug them so they know they are not alone. And remember, subscribe to the channel, Portraits of Life, Pain in the Soul, for more stories that remind us what truly matters before it's too late.